Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I finally finished the original Star Wars trilogy. I never watched the Blu-ray version before. I have seen it. I saw it as a kid on TV. I watched it on video when they remastered them. Then I saw the special editions, and I watched the Blu-ray, the DVDs before. I saw the new series of films. So I haven't watched them a lot of times. That's kind of good because each time I see them, they're not a new experience, but they're still enjoyable, unlike some other movies which I've watched to death, like the Star Trek films. So it's interesting. It's funny, after watching the prequels and then Rogue One and Solo, although Solo was on DVD, so the picture quality, a lot of detail was lacking, but Rogue One, the quality of the effects, and it's kind of hard to watch the original. You feel a lack of scale and a lack of detail, and you can see how rough everything is, and um, but you sort of know it's coming in Return of the Jedi and that. So, and they do sort of establish the scale in the second film, and it's a much bigger production. So that was kind of noticeable. Although I don't think any of the film's opening shots from any of the prequels or sequels really matched that first shot from the original Star Wars. I don't think George even tried to match it. I think he was happy for that one to be just that standout shot. Um, but it's really interesting watching it after the fact. And there are lots of little things that don't quite add up. And I remember someone was talking about someone did a special edit of the original trilogy, a Blu-ray edit using basically restoring the elements that were changed and using the current Blu-ray DVD releases to do like a HD version, and watching that and trying to forget about all the prequels and sequels and just watch the films as their own experience. And it's very difficult to do that now. You're very well aware of things, and I'm watching the film and I'm like, just wait, that's wrong. That's wrong. I'm like, no, that's right. The prequels they wrote over. Like when Leia and Luke are talking about when he asks her about, do you remember your mother? And she's like, oh, vaguely, she died when I was young. I'm like, she died when you were born, never met her. I'm like, no, that was the prequels. But I'm guessing her adopted mother died when she was young, and he was not really knowing their history, really. Um, didn't know that their mother died in childbirth. So I guess you can explain around it all. So it does kind of work. There's a few things that I don't quite get, but I'll get into that. I guess I should look at each film. The original is just, it's still the best. It is still the best, even though it has that rough, small quality about it. Um, it's swashbuckling. It's adventure. It's um, these people that you like all just stuck in a ship trying to survive. And it's an adventure, and they're flying by the seat of their pants the whole time. It's great. That's what was good about it. The second film, I didn't realize how much it suffered from middle filmitis, or sequelitis, or like second filmitis. I don't know. There's some name for the middle film in a trilogy. Um, I thought more happened. I was sort of waiting for the big sort of end scene. I'm like, no, you're remembering the films all as one. I think I maybe when I was a kid, I think I saw the second and third films together. I think when the third film was released, they re showed the second one. So I think I have a memory of them together as sort of one film. I think I watched them as a double feature or something. So like all the scenes in Hoth, I remember all that, and that all looks amazing. Um, I didn't realize how simple the plot is. Basically, they have got their new base because the old one was discovered in the first film. They are discovered, and then they just run. Luke goes to Dagobah to find Yoda to be trained, and the rest of them, they're just looking for anywhere to hide, basically. And they end up on an asteroid, which of course isn't an asteroid, and that's one of my favourite scenes. And then we have the Cloud Planet, where they get betrayed by Lando, and it's interesting to see the difference between Billy D's betrayal and oops, um, I forgot his name. Glover. Donald Glover. Um, and I did notice the hair. Lando, he didn't. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Just the little things, just the little different choices in the actors and that. But yeah, Lando still a sexy bitch, and it's funny to see the capes and everything. And I don't know how he got away with that in 1983, but he did. And it's also hard to forget how many little differences and how many little changes there are. I mean, a lot of them are subtle and work because the special editions. I saw the special editions more than I saw the original. I saw the original on TV, and I think I might have seen the original on video before they did the special editions on video. I think, but it's something that bothered older fans more, and a lot of people talked about it. A lot of people were not happy about it, and I mean, I guess we'll get into. I'll do that last. The thing with Empire Strikes Back is it really is the whole middle film. Basically, they just find each other. Han gets taken, he gets put in carbonite, and the film ends there. It doesn't have a big epic a battle or something. I remembered them doing something more than that, and each time I see it, I'm very much aware of it, and it doesn't matter so much to me because I'm seeing all three films together. I saw the third film when the other two films had already been made. I can't imagine what it would have been like to watch that second film and not have that sense of resolution or that climax, and just sort of the tale sort of continuing but not finishing, and then having to wait 3 years. Now there's a lot of talk, revisionist talk now, that everyone hated the Empire Strikes Back, and it's the same as the Last Jedi, and the Last Jedi will be seen more favourably in the end, in the future. It'll be seen differently, just like Empire was seen differently, blah blah. I don't remember anyone saying anything bad about Empire. I don't remember anyone complaining or being not happy with Empire. People knew it was part of a trilogy, and they had faith in George. They had no reason to doubt him or doubt what was going to happen. After Last Jedi, a lot of people are doubting that the conclusion is going to resolve things. And it doesn't help that Carrie Fisher died and changed things, and Rian Johnson changed things. So I think the reaction to that is very different, and I don't think Empire is seen the same, but it does suffer from middle film-itis. So... And I heard a story that the last shot, one of the last shots, either the shot of them looking out into space on the ship after they've collected Luke and he's recovering from having his hand cut off. There's a lot of hands being cut off. Someone did a video on this. There are so many hands cut off in the prequel trilogies and in this film. There's like 7 or 8 people get their hands cut off. What is it about cutting hands off in Star Wars? Okay, I have to look into that one day. Yeah, the last shot, it's either the shot where they're looking out at the galaxy or the shot of the ship where you see the little window and you see them all in the window. One of those shots was not completed, I heard, by the time the film went into the cinemas, and they had to send out that last little strip of film to all the cinemas and have it manually put into the film, like after the first weekend or something, so it would be in for the next week or something. Apparently, I heard that story, which outdoes the Star Trek the motion picture story, where they basically were putting the last reels in the day before the film was released, and they had all the film canisters like laid out on a soundstage floor waiting for them to go in, and then they went out the next day. That was just scary late to be finished, finishing effects. But apparently Empire was worse. They didn't get that last shot is what I heard, but I need to check that actually happened, because sometimes you hear rumours and myths and legends around movies like this, and sometimes they're just not true. So now we go into the third film. Now the third film I remember the most because it was one of those films that I had the book. I had the book of Return of the Jedi, and back in the day, before videos were retail, because you could get them from video stores, but you couldn't always own your own copy, so you couldn't watch it whenever you wanted unless you were going to go rent it out every week, which some people, we did. But you had the book or the comic, and I had the book of Return of the Jedi, so I am really familiar with that film so much more than the others. So when I was watching the trilogy, I had about 3 hours sleep, and I was falling asleep during Empire. I was watching it about 2 a.m. in the morning. So I ended up going to sleep about half an hour into Return of the Jedi. So basically after the Sarlacc, if you can call it a Sarlacc. scene, I went to bed and I watched the whole film this morning today. So it's kind of a bit clearer in my mind, but it always is because of that situation. And I do have all the book and tape stuff, and I had some Star Wars stuff when I was a kid, but not a lot. But that was the one I had the full storybook. So it starts off a little bit slow, and it kind of wasn't as obvious to me when I was a kid that Luke was placing everyone in Jabba's palace to effect this rescue of Han. And it's funny how Han comes out of that carbonite looking so much older and fatter. But I guess that's just the stress of being stuck in carbonite for however long he was. And I do feel bad for Carrie Fisher having to wear that outfit, because obviously you can see from her face she's lost a lot of weight to fit into that outfit. And she looks quite gaunt in the early part of the film and exhausted, although she could have been, apparently she was having some problems at that time. But by the end of the film, her face is fattened up and she looks quite healthy again. So I'm guessing they filmed those scenes early on. And a lot of people have problems with Jedi because of the Ewoks. And I'm not as bothered by the Ewoks and the jungle scenes. I mean, I grew up with horses and I was always out in the bush, out in the forest. So something about that film and that I could kind of relate to that. I spent a lot of time out playing, and I could imagine, Ewoks and speeders and stuff, and it doesn't bother me as much. Some people don't like it. I think it's too cutesy, too lame. But I mean, the things get shot, for God's sakes. It's not totally teddy bear country, So I think people are a little bit harsh on it, but I can kind of see how it kind of pulls away from what you're expecting from the other films, where it was all spaceships and space stations, and you're out basically in the woods with furry little creatures. So, but then again, there are aliens and creatures in every scene, in the cantina scene, everywhere. So it's not that crazy, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm trying to think what were my issues with it. The main issues are more with the special edition than the original film. I went to see the special edition and I was really excited to see, because most people who saw the films when years after they were done noticed the matte lines and the effects things. They were really good with detail and quality, but they weren't always perfect with quality. They had to get the shot done, they had to get the film out, and sometimes they didn't finish them properly and there were mistakes. And they're really obvious, and that's the thing I was looking forward to the most, that they were going to be fixed. I was thinking this is going to be seamless, flawless, no problems. And then you see the what is that creature in Jabba's pit? I've forgotten the name of it. The Rancor. You can see the matte lines like nothing else. They didn't fix them. And what did they do? They spent their money making a Muppet sing and come right at the screen. And I remember his just mouth, and it just looked ridiculous. I'm like, that's what you spend your money on, George? You're creating Muppets for kids to laugh at instead of fixing the effects for the teenagers and adults and people that want to watch this film seriously. I was really shocked. And then when Jar Jar came along in The Force Awakens, I'm like, oh, I didn't see where that was going. I thought that was a misstep. I didn't see that was a warning. Yeah, so I was always shocked, but I was really happy to see in the Blu-ray edition that I've got, and I don't know which edition it is. I know he's tweaked every version. There's the DVD, the special edition, the DVDs, the first Blu-ray, the second Blu-ray, and maybe a third Blu-ray release. But this one, they actually got rid of all the matte lines. I could see the lines were a little soft where they did it, but that's only because I was looking. If you didn't know, if you're watching it for the first time, you'd just think it was a good effect. You wouldn't have known it originally was done and it was partially flawed. So I'm glad they fixed that. Now, the Muppets are still in there, but at least they fixed the other problem. Because when they didn't fix one problem, but then created a new one, I was just baffled. But now and I can forgive that. I mean, it's extra. It's a Muppet, you can just ignore it. But what really, I think, annoys me, and still, I think, because everyone's talked about it and done videos about it, is the Sarlacc. I can't believe that they ruined it. It was this terrifying, anus vagina monster, and just the idea of falling into it and just being slowly devoured and digested over eternity was horrific. And maybe George thought it was too horrific for kids, maybe it gave too many kids nightmares, so he covered it up with this stupid, harmless turtle beak or something. I don't know what it is. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to buying the HD versions of the original trilogy, which I only found out existed a couple of weeks ago. So I'm really glad, because I'm just going to get them, and I'll probably watch them in future, or at least maybe I'll make some edit where I just cut out the couple of scenes I don't like and then keep the rest of the films as they are. Because I do like the inclusion of Tamara Morrison's Boba Fett, his voice, because he's hot. And when I imagine him under the costume, Boba Fett's a much more interesting character than the other actor I've seen pictures of who played the character. And the other thing, what else did they change? What else did they change? There's something else I actually liked that they did. Whatever, I've forgotten. But the story itself, I'm always surprised that the Emperor wasn't aware of Darth's weakness and Darth's love for his son, and he wasn't paying any attention to him, underestimated him, undervalued him, was happy to ditch him for Luke, like that wouldn't affect him, or I'm surprised they wrote the Emperor that way, that he actually so underestimated that relationship. If he's so all-seeing and amazing, but I guess that's part of the arrogance of being a Jedi. They are arrogant, so he assumed everything would just go the way he foresaw, and it didn't quite, but we're not sure how it's going to go because he's coming back. Now we get to his death. Now, I always thought, why the hell, why couldn't he just fly? Why couldn't he just levitate? Why couldn't he just stop himself from falling down into this pit and hitting this radioactive reactor, whatever, and then blowing up? So I am kind of seeing that, okay, I can kind of see that he didn't die, he just managed to get out of that somehow by either just transporting himself or changing into another form, or I can see how he could have survived that, because it just never seemed like a fitting death to him. I do know that they're only doing it because they're desperate for something, but I do think out of all the choices, it is the best choice to bring back the Emperor. So I'm going to watch The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi first, which I've seen The Force Awakens twice in the cinema, and I saw The Last Jedi once, and it didn't really hit me, the issues with it, till later when people were talking about it. I didn't quite feel right about it, but it'll be interesting to see it again, and then I'm going to go see the 12 o'clock screening tonight. But so far as the original trilogy, I'm sort of okay with them bringing back the Emperor. It does kind of fit, it does kind of work. However they came about it, I don't want to really dwell on it too much, because you can just get obsessed with all the negative stuff there. I'm just going to try and enjoy it, and I hope that they find a way to end it off. And I'm going to end this off now, because I can't think of anything else to say about the trilogy, but that was my experience of the original Star Wars trilogy. So if you watched the whole thing, thanks. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. Comments are good. Thanks. Bye.